Hi, this is Richard Hébert with Engel & Volkers New Orleans. Thank you so much for tuning in to Buy Now or Wait. This is my fall 2025 market forecast and outlook for the greater New Orleans area. In today's webinar, we're going to cover quite a few topics, everything ranging from interest rates all the way to insurance and insurance premiums, and also what's currently going on in the greater New Orleans market. So we'll take a little peek into the trends and where I see the market heading as we head into 2026. We're also going to talk a little bit about how you can take advantage of the current market and also be prepared if you're considering buying, whether that's immediately within the next 3 to 6 months or even further along. We're going to cover all of that today. A little bit of background about myself. I've been a real estate agent here in New Orleans for about 7 years now, and I work with everyone from first-time home buyers to investors, from condos to multi-million-dollar properties. I cover a little bit of everything, even from the South Shore to the North Shore, the East Bank and the West Bank. So I have experience in just about every facet of real estate you can imagine, and I am always happy to share my knowledge. So please don't hesitate to reach out. There's a link below if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one consultation. We can chat anything that you'd like at any point. And don't forget that if you're watching this during the live YouTube premiere, I am available live in the comments, so post your comments down there in the chat box and I'll be sure to answer those as quickly as possible. But if you're watching this on replay or later on, please feel free to reach out anytime. My cell phone number is 504-617-5184. My email address and website, richardhebertrealtor.com, are all listed below. And without further ado, let's dive into Buy Now or Wait, your fall 2025 Greater New Orleans market forecast. Now, this is a question I get a lot, and that is, where are mortgage rates headed in the fall in 2026? And truthfully, and I know this is a great start to a webinar, but no one really knows for sure. Nobody can tell you with 100% certainty where mortgage rates are headed. So trying to kind of gamify the market a little bit is going to be an enormous challenge. Since no one can predict with 100% certainty exactly where mortgage rates are headed, what we do is look at overarching trends and economic factors that play into what make these mortgage rates occur. And before we take a look at where mortgage rates are headed, let's wind it back a little bit and take a look at how we got here. As everybody knows, in 2020 and 2021, mortgage rates hit an all-time low. Some of them dipped into the low twos. Sometimes I think we dipped a toe in the high ones, but they were historically low. Those interest rates are likely to never happen again. However, with those extraordinarily low interest rates, they also come with a bit of a burn. And that burn is in the form of inflation. And I think that we've all felt it to one degree or another, the squeeze of the market, the high cost of goods and the high cost of living, and the pinch of a penny. So to combat that, the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates to slow the advancement of inflation. The Federal Reserve looks at two key indicators when they're setting interest rate policy. The first is going to be the jobs report. The higher the unemployment claims go, the lower they want to get the interest rate in order to facilitate spending and hiring to get the jobless claims lower. And then of course we have inflation. The higher the inflation rate, the higher the interest rate. So whereas the job reports is an inverse relationship, we want the inflation to be a direct relationship. And now in 2025, the unemployment claims have gone up, so the Fed has looked to lower interest rates to provide some ease into the market to allow for more hiring and higher spending and borrowing. In 2020, when jobless claims were at an all-time high and economic spending was dramatically slowed down amidst the economic shutdown, the Fed actually lowered the interest rate quite dramatically, as we all know, to encourage spending across the board. And spending also means employment and hiring. And now in 2025, we know that inflation has continued to stick around much longer than anyone expected, but also at the same time, the unemployment claims have continued to rise. So to combat that, the Federal Reserve has looked in the fall of this year and going into 2026 to start easing those interest rates to encourage more spending. So let's look at the data. In 2020, rates averaged somewhere in the range of 2 to 3%. Ask your mom, ask your dad, ask anybody you know, those are rates that are absolutely unheard of and are likely to never occur again. Now, going into 2023, that's when rates started to rise again. I think we saw rates peak out just over 7%, around 7.2%, And now in 2025, here in the fall, we're looking at rates averaging around 6.2 to 6.6%. I have seen in the past couple of weeks clients starting to lock in the high fives, which is very different from where we were just a month ago. Now, if you're following the national headlines, you're probably seeing about 100 different conflicting projections of where interest rates are headed. But I think the general consensus lands on that between the end of 2025 and through the end of 2026, we're looking at average interest rates somewhere between that 5 to 6% range, which I think is a range that people would consider about average based on the historic data. And if you want to stay up to date on interest rates, be sure to subscribe to my newsletter. Sign up over on my website, richardhebertrealtor.com, and I provide a weekly interest rate update right there in my newsletter. What does the real estate market look like in Greater New Orleans as of fall 2025? Well, we're going to have to break it down a little bit. As you're probably familiar, the Greater New Orleans market is made up of a ton of micro markets. But to make things simple today, we're going to break it down into New Orleans, Jefferson Parish, and the North Shore. All right, New Orleans, what was once a pretty bleak tale is starting to look up. At its most recent worst, the New Orleans market was facing 9 months of inventory. Now, what does that mean to have 9 months of inventory? Months of inventory covers the absorption rate of inventory on the market. Inventory being houses that are available for purchase, and absorption rate means that, let's say for instance, 9 months of inventory. That's to say that if no more homes were listed, based on the current buying demand, it would take 9 months for every home that's currently on the market to be purchased. And for a frame of reference, a balanced market is considered to be 6 months of inventory. At 6 months of inventory, that means it's not a seller's market and it's not a buyer's market. But New Orleans was at 9 months of inventory, meaning it was a very strong buyer's market. That means getting more concessions, lower prices, all of that stuff. Everything was sort of working in the favor of buyers, except for the fact that we had those high interest rates. And as of this month in New Orleans, things are looking a little bit better. Buyers are starting to ease back into the market now that interest rates have come down a bit and insurance rates have leveled out. And with that, we are now at 7.3 months of inventory, down from that peak of 9 months of inventory. And we're actually seeing an 8% month over month decrease in the amount of inventory. Now, is that favorable for buyers? Yes, in a way that your property values will be sustained, but also it means that the activity is starting to pick up. And that can also mean, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, that can also mean that sellers actually are becoming a little bit more comfortable themselves in putting their home on the market. So you may actually have more to choose from, higher selection, lower prices, and lower interest rates. The other key factor we look at is median days on the market. Median days on the market is the average that we see of how long it takes a home to sell once it hits the market. At its peak, we saw an average of 80 plus days on market. And as of this month, that number has come down significantly, almost by 50%, and now we're down to an average of 51 days on the market. And what that means is homes aren't sitting on the market quite as long looking for a buyer, that there are more buyers in the market looking to purchase, and that there is fewer inventory being available on the market. And people also want to ask, what is the average sales price in New Orleans? Well, as I mentioned that the Greater New Orleans area is made up of a ton of micro markets. Well, Orleans Parish is made up of even more micro markets. The overall average sale price in New Orleans currently sits at $349,500. Now, as we know, New Orleans is made up of a ton of micro markets. So if you're interested in a specific neighborhood, whether that's Uptown, the French Quarter, Gentilly, Mid-City, any of those, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and I can get you the exact data for the particular neighborhoods that you're interested in. Now, Jefferson Parish, it is a tall task to break down the data for you, but we're going to go over some of the key points now. If you're not familiar with the geography of Jefferson Parish, it covers a massive range. That's going to be everything from Metairie and Kenner to the West Bank and even as far south as Grand Isle. Yes, Grand Isle is technically Jefferson Parish. So a lot of these data points, we're going to have to break it down even further with you if you want to look at particular cities or neighborhoods. So take all of this with a grain of salt. For the collective of Jefferson Parish, this is everybody all together, you're at about 4.8 months of inventory, which indicates a seller market just ever so slightly. It's on that lower side of the 6 months, which indicates a balanced market. But that, again, we're gonna have to break that down further for you if you're looking in a particular city. So though the collective of Jefferson Parish is looking at a little bit of a seller's market, we're gonna need to break that down for you specifically. So if you're looking in Kenner, Metairie, Marrero, Gretna, Harvey, any of those locations, go ahead and reach out to me and I'm happy to get you the data points for that so that you can look specifically at the areas that you're interested in. To round out the data for Jefferson Parish, the current average days on market is right at 39, which is pretty favorable, and an average sale price around $270,000. Taking a look at the North Shore, I think it would probably be easiest to sum it up in 3 different key cities on the North Shore. So let's take a look at each. In Slidell, you're looking at 5.75 months of inventory. You're looking at 53 days average on market and an average sale price of $235,000. Now moving over to Covington, things are looking a little bit more competitive. You've got 5 months of inventory, 34 days average on market, and an average sale price of $335,000. And then probably the most competitive market on the North Shore is gonna be Mandeville. Mandeville, you've got 3.6 months of inventory, which is indicating a seller's market for the most part. Only 24 average days on market and an impressive average sale price of $409,000. There's also a seasonality to our market that plays into this data a bit as well. As many of you know, the summer market in New Orleans and the greater New Orleans area is a bit slower than the rest of the country. It's extremely hot, people tend to be going on vacations, and we're also facing hurricane season. Our fall and spring seasons tend to be the busiest for our buyers and sellers alike. Now, in a lot of other markets around the country, they are coming off of their busy season as you go into lower interest rates. So finally, as a bit of retribution for having to face hurricane season, Greater New Orleans is being poised to take benefit from lower interest rates, improved insurance premiums, and going into our busy season all at once. So we are starting to see improvement across the board in our market here because of the seasonality, the data and the projections that we're looking at, as well as insurance and interest benefits. Another good question I get asked are where are the hot spots in our market? These are going to be areas that have high buyer activity, tend to retain value better than others, and are currently seeing a flurry of that buyer activity and have high projected value increases over the next 12 months. Those areas include Metairie for Bucktown to Bonneville, also the 70003 neighborhoods, that's areas around Lafreniere Park like the Willowdale subdivision. Also, we've got really great activity happening in Araby. A lot of new construction is available there. So if that's something that concerns you or something that you're interested in, there's a lot of great new construction happening in Araby. Also, we're seeing so much demand growing in Gretna, especially old Gretna, like downtown. That area has gotten so popular, especially over the past 5 to 7 years. There's a lot of wonderful stuff happening there. So if you're planning to do something like a renovation, that could be a great place to look if you want to get more bang for your buck. And lastly, there's Marrero. People really tend to enjoy that their dollar goes a lot further in Marrero. You can get larger lots and larger homes. You also have an ease of access to big box stores. And also on the other side of that spectrum, you have access to things like Jean Lafitte Park and a lot of great nature experiences. Sellers who locked in at one of those historically low interest rates are a huge variable in market projections. These sellers, and you may be one of them, are folks who locked in those ultra low interest rates, either as a new purchase or part of a refinance. It may not have seem as feasible for them to make a move because interest rates have been so high and they may not have quite the same amount of equity of someone who has owned for a very long time. Now, on average, people tend to move every 3 to 5 years. And so right now we're seeing a lot of those sellers are facing growing pains. If they locked in 5 years ago, that's 2020. You had the lowest interest rates ever recorded in the United States at that time. And now we need to find opportunities for you to make a move by selling your home and getting into another home to take advantage of these lower interest rates. This section is wildly speculative. I wish I could send a survey out to every current homeowner in the greater New Orleans area to know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and what they're planning, but we just don't know that. What I do expect to see is a slow increase in inventory by these sellers looking to make their next move. Now, what that could also mean is that there's higher inventory available on the market, but they also become buyers. So that is potentially a 1-to-1 ratio of these sellers listing their home in order to get into another one. And with that comes contingent offers. Contingent offers are offers on another home that it requires the sale of their current home in order to purchase the new one. Now, if you aren't a current homeowner who's looking to buy, this is a good opportunity for you to make an offer that's not contingent on the sale of a current home. So as we're seeing popping up here and there, that homes are going multiple offers, you may be the strongest in the bunch. And in just a little bit, we're gonna talk about ways to make your offer stronger without spending even an extra dollar. The return of these homeowners as sellers in this market may serve to reduce competition and level out some of that increased buyer demand due to low interest rates. What we're gonna wanna keep an eye on is the pace of new inventory coming into market, but also how quickly are those new homes going under contract. If we're not seeing a big jump in months of inventory and not a big jump in the average days on market, that's a good sign that things have balanced out and that there's not going to be some massive rush into the market that I think a lot of real estate agents have been trying to encourage buyers with, that there's going to be some huge rush of people back into the market and a lack of inventory and dramatically increased prices all of a sudden. I think that speculation is a little bit short-sighted because it's not taking into consideration these folks who purchased at low interest rates, have been holding out and staying out of the game, and who may now start coming back into the market to sell their home, increase inventory, and also purchase on the backside as well. When I'm asked the question, when is the right time to buy, it always depends on the individual client. But I do have one sort of blanket answer that I like to provide for everyone. The right time to buy for you is when it makes financial sense, when you feel prepared, and when you find a home you love. And that timing is going to be a little bit different for everybody. There's no singular time that is right to buy in the market. Trying to time the market is an impossible task. There are so many factors that could change at the drop of a hat. With the economy, with world events, all of these things have an influence on finances, whether that's interest rates or also people's ability to borrow and to lend. So timing the market as a whole is an extraordinarily difficult task, and I don't recommend taking on that task. That being said, there are a few opportunity windows, such as the one that we're coming up on, that I would recommend people who previously decided to hold off may be interested in stepping back into the buying market. The reason that I'm looking forward to the fall and spring for my buyer clients is that this is a very unique window of opportunity where those interest rates are starting to decline. There hasn't been an absolute rush of new buyers into the market, and there's still pretty significant inventory available on the market to, one, keep competition low, but also offer you the greatest selection possible. As a reminder, the best time to buy is when it feels right to you. So communicate with your trusted real estate agent or advisor, a local lender, insurance brokers. Go ahead and be having those conversations now so that you'll know when the time is right for you. Insurance premiums over the past year have started to soften a bit, and I'm really careful about the language that I use here by calling it softening. We're not seeing a dramatic decrease of insurance premiums across the board, but there are some key factors that have helped soften the cost of insurance premium and reduce the rate of increase. In 2021 and 2022, we know that post-Hurricane Ida, insurance premiums took an absolute leap into the sky in Southeast Louisiana. But now what we're seeing is through a few important efforts by the state, by local insurers, and a number of different homeowners through fortification efforts and the improvement of building standards in Louisiana, we are seeing those insurance premiums soften. I think one of the best things to happen to insurance premiums in our area is the Fortified Roof Program. Through the fortification lottery that the state's done with a $10,000 grant for new fortified roofs for current homeowners, as well as new fortified roofs going on new construction homes, we're seeing that the risk factor in our market for insurance has started to be reduced, which is wonderful for everybody because that also brings in new insurers into our market and drive up competition in order to drive down or at least stabilize our insurance premiums. And whether you're going to start looking now or down the road, it is good to go ahead and connect with a local insurance agent. They can tell you the key things to look out for, and I'm also happy to talk this through with you. We'll look at key features in homes such as, does it have that fortified roof? Is it in a flood zone? What type of building materials is it made out of? Has the plumbing and electrical been updated to modern standards? All of these things play different roles in how your insurance premium is calculated based on a specific home. So good to go ahead and connect with somebody locally, and then as you look home by home, have your trusted advisor call out those key points that might make one home a much better fit for you in terms of insurance than the other to bring down your monthly note and keep your expenses in your pocket. 1. Connect with me. Let's get together and have a conversation. We'll do a quick buyer consultation. We can get together for a coffee. We could come into my office here on Magazine Street, and we can talk a little bit more about what you need to be prepared. But go ahead and start building your team, and I would love for you to start with me. 2, connect with a local lender. Local lenders are an invaluable resource for preparing for your home search. So go ahead and reach out to your friends, your family. I'm also happy to provide some recommendations for trusted local lenders who can set you on the right track. And it's never too early to start talking to a lender. 3, now that you've connected with the local lender, it's time to establish your budget. We want to see how much we're comfortable with spending on a monthly basis, and then we kind of reverse engineer that a little bit to look at the price range of homes we want to be most comfortable with. 4, prepare your wants and needs list. It's really a good time to start putting together everything that you want to see in a new home, whether that's something that you absolutely have to have and is a total non-negotiable, to things that would just be really nice, or even that kind of pie in the sky dream element to the home, whether that's a pool or a workshop or whatever that is. Go ahead and start putting that list together now. And 5, dip your toes into the local real estate market by checking out open houses and virtual tours that are available online. That's a great way to start to learn neighborhoods, to start to know what types of homes that you like, and to get a feel for what the touring experience will be like when we start to tour homes together. For all of my clients, I like to prepare plans A through Z so that there isn't anything crazy that comes up during the home buying journey that we can't face. And with this potential increase in buyer activity in the market, here's a great way for you to stay competitive with your offer without overspending or even getting a better discount on a home. First thing is to work with a local lender. The real estate community in New Orleans is generally pretty small. We all know each other. They know which lenders can get the job done, which ones are most responsive, and which ones also know the kind of complexities of our local market. So work with someone locally who can call the listing agent when it comes time to put in an offer and vouch for you in a way. Say, this is a really qualified buyer, they have their stuff together, and they're motivated. That brings the seller some peace of mind. Have a tighter due diligence period. So due diligence period is the time during which you conduct inspections. On average, it typically ranges from 7 to 14 days. So if there's a home that you really want, there may or may not be other competition and other offers on the table, but tightening up your due diligence window shows that you are very serious about the property, motivated, but it also protects you, that it gives you enough time to complete your inspections. Be flexible on the closing date. Have your real estate agent reach out to the listing agent to find out what closing date could work best for the seller. They may have different needs, such as the purchase of a new home that they need the closing date to line up with, or in some cases, they just like to close as quickly as possible. But showing that you're considering what the seller's needs are as well, they will be more likely to entertain things such as seller paid closing costs, or also a potential lower purchase price. Before you even write your offer, get your insurance quotes. This is so important. This helps you make sure that the home is within your monthly budget, and it also tells the seller, again, that you are serious about purchasing the home. You've done your research, you've gotten your numbers together, you love the home, and you're prepared to go through the process as informed as possible. And lastly, you can jumpstart the appraisal. Most of the time, we wait until after the inspection period to order an appraisal. But if you do have other competition and you're up against other offers, it can be really reassuring to a seller in an uncertain market that you're going ahead and getting the appraisal earlier on in the process to make sure that that can be addressed earlier should something come up like a low appraisal or issues on the appraisal that need to be remedied by the seller. And if you do all of those things combined, you are putting yourself in a great position to get the best price on a home, or if you're in a case of multiple offers, to beat out those other offers. And I can tell you right now that using these exact tips, I've helped a number of clients, especially in the past 3 months, beat out other offers and get the best price on a home. There are 2 words I would use to describe my personal long-term outlook for the greater New Orleans real estate market and the greater New Orleans area in general. And that's going to be cautiously optimistic. We are seeing a lot of growth in key sectors like manufacturing and infrastructure investments and also healthcare. We're seeing large companies make big investments in areas such as the new River District being developed in New Orleans that show there is a great amount of interest in the continued success of the greater New Orleans area. And remember that I called out earlier, there are a few areas of town and particular neighborhoods that are seeing progressive growth year over year. So that's going to be areas near Lafreniere Park, also the Bucktown to Bonneville area, Harvey and downtown Gretna and Old Gretna in particular, even over to Marrero. So if you're looking for something that has a more trustworthy or a little bit more confidence in terms of the immediate market growth, be looking at those areas. They may lie outside of where you had expected to be before, but they're areas that, hey, may be worth giving a second look. And there's so much that can change in the market. So this is the biggest thing that I want to leave you with today. Remember that the right time to buy is when it makes financial sense for you, you found a home that you love, and you're prepared to make the purchase. Don't rush into anything too crazy, and then also have all your T's crossed and your I's dotted with your real estate agent and also with your lender. Thank you so much for joining me today in Buy Now or Wait, my fall 2025 real estate outlook for the greater New Orleans area. I know this can seem pretty overwhelming and there's a lot of information and a lot of data and a lot of national headlines that don't always apply to our immediate market. Please know that I'm here for you as a resource. I am always happy to have a conversation, to book a consultation, and assist you in your home buying or selling journey. We're going to be doing a lot more video content, so if you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button. That really helps with our algorithm and it helps keep you updated with all of our new videos. And if there are any specific videos that you would like to see or any topics covered, please comment that below. I'm always looking for new topics and I'm excited to roll out a ton more video content in the months coming. For additional buyer and seller resources, be sure to visit richardhebertrealtor.com. There's a link in the description box below, and that's also where you can book a one-on-one consultation. Thank you so much and happy house hunting.